If there's one thing veterans from the Pacific and Southeast Asian theatres agreed on, it's that the jungle itself was as much an enemy as any soldier carrying a rifle. Mosquitoes didn't just annoy, they crippled entire units with malaria and dengue. Troops could lose half their operational strength to fever before ever firing a shot. So, when you read through field reports and diaries, something interesting shows up again and again. Certain units had far fewer mosquito problems than others, despite having the same gear and rations. They weren't using commercial repellents or complex equipment. Instead, they relied on a trick passed through native scouts, local tribes, and experienced jungle rangers, burning specific plants that produced almost no smoke, yet pushed mosquitoes away from the perimeter. It sounds too simple, but it worked well enough that some units reported clean nights even during peak mosquito season. This video breaks down that forgotten technique. We'll look at why the mixture worked, how troops prepared it in the field, and how you can replicate it today with materials you can actually find. The goal is not nostalgia. It's practical knowledge rooted in real wartime experience. Troops in Burma, New Guinea, the Solomons and the Philippines quickly learned that typical campfires attracted more pests than they repelled. The thick smoke bothered the men more than the mosquitoes, and open fires gave away positions. Rangers, Chindits, Merrill's marauders and Filipino guerrillas instead relied on slow-burning plant bundles that produced a light vapour rather than a cloud of smoke. These weren't random leaves thrown into a fire. They were actually specific aromatic plants with natural oils that interrupt the mosquito's ability to track carbon dioxide and body heat. In field notes, these plants are mentioned repeatedly. Citronella grass, lemongrass, crushed eucalyptus leaves, guava bark shavings, and the heartwood scrapings of certain hardwoods like ironwood or nara. No single plant was strong enough on its own, but when dried and bundled together, they created a kind of silent vapour that hung close to the ground. Troops described it as a faint herbal smell, not enough to give away a position, but enough to create a perimeter where mosquitoes became noticeably scarce. One thing that makes this trick stand out is how practical it was in the field. Jungle troops were constantly moving, so anything complicated or slow didn't survive. The process usually followed a straightforward sequence. First, they gathered plants with high natural oil content. Citronella and lemongrass were favourites because you could crush the leaves and immediately smell the strength of the oils. Locals taught troops to test potency by rubbing a leaf between the fingers and checking how greasy it felt. More oil meant a better burn. Next came the drying process. Troops didn't fully dry the material because that would cause it to burn too quickly and produce too much smoke. They aimed for a half-dry consistency where the plant material would smoulder rather than flame. This slow smoulder was key to creating a steady release of vapour instead of choking smoke. Bundles were tied with strips of bark or vine and placed on the outer edges of camp. A single bundle could smoulder for 1 to 2 hours, depending on moisture levels. Veteran units often staggered them, light one, wait an hour, light the next, maintaining a constant perimeter without having several smoking points at once. The idea was subtlety, not creating a bonfire ring. You can replicate this today by gathering lemongrass or citronella, adding eucalyptus if you have it, and inserting a few thin shavings of resin-rich wood. A modern way to test the mixture is to light one bundle in an open area and stand about 2 meters away. You should smell a faint herbal aroma, not thick smoke. If it burns too fast, the mixture is too dry. If it gives off heavy smoke, it's too wet. The balance is the entire trick. Modern research on essential oils helps confirm what World War II troops learned by experience. Oils such as citronellal, geraniol, cineol and limonene interfere with a mosquito's olfactory senses. They don't necessarily kill or repel in the aggressive sense, but they disrupt the mosquito's ability to find you. So this makes the mixture especially effective when you're sitting or sleeping in one area, since, well, mosquitoes rely heavily on scent trails at night. Compared to modern repellents, this method has a few advantages. It doesn't rely on synthetic chemicals, doesn't require applying anything to the skin, and doesn't produce thick smoke that irritates the eyes. If you're camping, running a minimalist kit, or, just want a backup that doesn't depend on store-bought repellent, the World War II mixture is a surprisingly reliable fallback. A practical, modern example. If you have a campsite near lemongrass or wild citronella, just gather a handful, twist it into a loose braid, and place it near your sleeping area. You don't need a fire pit, just a safe stone base or a metal cup to contain the embers. Light it, let it take, and then smother it down until it gently smoulders. You'll get a manageable, low-profile vapour barrier, pretty much like what jungle troops managed to achieve about 8 decades ago. The mosquito-repelling bundles weren't just a comfort measure. They were part of an entire mindset that soldiers had to adopt in the jungle. Units that really got the hang of this trick tended to have lower sickness rates, higher morale, and better nighttime security. It really shows the value of learning from local knowledge and adapting quickly. Many of the most effective World War II innovations, they weren't invented in laboratories. They were borrowed from people who had lived in the environment for centuries. In your own use, this method becomes a reminder that, small preparations really do matter. It also serves as a bit of a historical exercise. Recreating these bundles lets you experience firsthand a tiny part of what World War II jungle units relied on. A step-by-step modern demonstration might look like this. Gather 8 to 10 fresh lemongrass stalks, bruise them with a stone to release the oils. Add a handful of eucalyptus leaves, twist them into a thick bundle. Let it sit in the sun for about an hour. Then light the end and immediately tamp it down so it smoulders instead of burning. You'll recognize the distinctive aroma that World War II troops described in their journals. We live in a world full of chemical sprays, electric zappers and specialized bug-repelling gear, yet most of those tools depend on batteries, supply chains or commercial availability. The World War II low-smoke plant method works anywhere these plants grow and can be improvised even in remote regions. It bridges history and practical skills in a way few other techniques do. For serious history enthusiasts, it's another example of how the smaller, less glamorous parts of wartime experience often hold the most lasting value. For survivalists, it's an alternative that requires almost nothing and still performs reliably. And for anyone tired of chemical repellents, it's a natural, historically proven method you can use anytime you're outdoors, long enough for mosquitoes to become more than just an annoyance. If this deep dive into forgotten World War II fieldcraft gave you something new to think about, make sure you subscribe to Forgotten Frontlines and share this guide with someone who loves the intersection of history and hands-on skills. There are plenty more lost techniques worth bringing back to life.